right, checking audio. Here we go. MCAT and Premed Q&A with Dr. Matt. All right, here we go. Med school admissions, MCAT, and more. Jump in, go live. Double checking our audio here. I think we're good to go, and it looks like everything is sort of kind of squared up. All right, guys, welcome in. If you're new here, my name is Dr. Matt. I am one of the most experienced MCAT tutors and med school admissions coaches in the country. Welcome on in. We like to talk about the MCAT, med school admissions, and all of that fun stuff. Today, I think we're streaming to both places. It looks like everything is good to go. And we'll swing our little light source over to this side. All right, everything seems balanced up. My audio meters look like they're working on both platforms. So if you guys can tell me if the audio is working okay. A couple of things here. Let me leave a quick little guide comment. Thank you for the like, Othniel, appreciate it. Ask your MCAT and Premed questions here. And head over to mcatboss.com to see the new site. All right, guys, welcome in. Welcome, Othniel. Welcome, Lizette. Over on the YouTube side, welcome in, guys. If you would like to leave a message or a question, drop those questions in. We are going to be covering a couple different things tonight. I think we try to kind of answer a lot of the fairly common questions, but I like to be able to treat individuals as their own sort of case study for everybody getting into med school. So you're always welcome to share any unique circumstances, any particular things that you think might be preventing you from getting into med school. You want to know kind of what the best approach is. Those kinds of questions are always more than welcome. We have been focusing the last couple of times on discussing the advice that people should be looking for their son or daughter trying to enter med school. If you happen to be a parent of a pre-med, I think right now for the incoming class, a really good MK welcome in, I think a really good sort of way to tackle is essentially asking the question of what you should be doing. Remington, welcome in. Paige, welcome in. Welcome in, guys. Othniel says, I think my GPA will prevent me from getting into med school, so I want to offset it with my MCAT. Any advice for that? Othniel, you are absolutely correct that the MCAT can certainly help to, Tokes, welcome in. It can help you to get a better acceptance chance to the point that it can actually be more helpful than a higher GPA, but it kind of depends on how much sort of makeup you need that MCAT to carry, right? How much weight you need that MCAT to carry. Some people, when they say that, they really, really, really mean they're dealing with a low GPA, right? Like they're like, oh man, I had a 1.9 or something. In those cases, it is actually pretty hard to make up. Once you drop out of the sort of mid 2 range, even with a really great MCAT, it can become very, very difficult to get in, at least for the MD track. It still might be doable for the DO track. It kind of depends, but I do like giving people relatively direct answers. If you're comfortable sharing more about your particular GPA, I'm more than happy to actually kind of talk with you about it and check on that. So if you can leave me more information. And what I'm going to do in the background is I'm going to pull up the MCAT and GPA grid from the double AMC. And then from there, we will go ahead and take a look at whatever your particular numbers are. Welcome in, Yi. All right. So the example that I like to give is this. A student tells me they have a 3.1 GPA. This puts them in the 3 to 3.2 bandwidth on the double AMC content on the double AMC acceptance grid. This is a kind of a classic advising chart that we use for the applicant versus acceptee grid from the AAMC. And the 3 to 3.2 GPA mark, if you were to score a 496, for example, on the MCAT, you would be looking at and this is not a good number, guys, 7% acceptance rate. So a 7% acceptance rate is what you'd be looking at. Now, if you happen to have that same 496 MCAT, but have a 3.5 GPA, it would help, but it would only get you up to about an 11% acceptance rate. And so that's not actually super good either. MK, thank you for the question. I will get right to it. Emily, welcome in. And Somerset Mom, thank you for joining us. And then, so to wrap up the GPA versus MCAT question, a 3.1 GPA would go from a 7% acceptance up to a 40% acceptance if you could get up above that 514 mark on the MCAT. So it makes a huge difference, a massive difference to raise that score. All right. MK says insight into the impact early submission can have, like secondary submitted early July versus mid-August. And MK, I'm going to jump right back to Emily says he's obsessed with the MK. My doc after 40 years says it's a total joke. I absolutely love this question because it really reflects on kind of the disconnect between doctors who are practicing and the actual reality of med school admissions. For those of you who actually understand, welcome in, Kendall. For those of you who actually understand, who are in the middle of like applying or reapplying to med school, you guys actually understand that this can make or break. The difference between you getting to become a doctor and not becoming a doctor can literally, your dream coming true can be made or broken by how well you do on the MCAT. It is probably the single most high impact exam you will take in your entire life. So, whenever you hear, if you guys are ever interacting with a doctor and some doctor makes a comment like the MCAT is a joke, you can totally calmly and kindly tell them that you understand that after it's behind you, right? Like, you won't ever have to answer a physics question again. You won't ever have to do a CARS exam again. But the student who scored a 517 might be at Harvard now, and the student who scored a 497 might never become a doctor. It's that big of a deal. And so for the out of touch doctors who don't really understand what that's like, it can be hard for them to understand, but it is a really big deal. Now, the reason that I'm still involved in this is because I actually had the journey from barely being able to finish an MCAT to scoring close to 100th percentile. And what that did is it unlocked the ability for me to get interview invitations at nearly every single school I applied to, multiple acceptances, early acceptances, and scholarship offers. So it is definitely a life-changing exam. And that is why I have been teaching it for more than 10 years and why I will keep teaching it going forward. MK says insights into impact early submissions can have, like secondary submitted early July versus mid-August. And my honest answer is that I actually don't think it matters that much. I think students who are used to feeling like it matters to be first in line feel like it's the most important thing to be the first application that a school reads. And I think the best way I can put it is, if a school is deciding who do I interview to become a potential medical student and doctor, is it the student who scored a 502 and has a 3.6 GPA and didn't really volunteer anywhere and wrote a really kind of like halfway personal statement, versus a student who scored, like, say, a 516 on their MCAT and has a 3.8 GPA and did 800 hours of volunteering and like wrote a really meaningful, thoughtful personal statement that made them sound really unique, but like applied in like late July. My guess is that student who applied late July and then didn't have secondaries done until the end of August, that student is probably still going to do pretty well. So I think it's good to get them in early if you can. It doesn't hurt. I just don't think it helps that much. All right. Somerset Mom says the MCAT does a good job assessing your ability to handle challenging problems. kind of, it does seem to predict some things about MCAT correlating with like step exams. I don't know that it correlates with shelf exams. The car section in particular, and Adrian, this is in response to yours. The car section is really, really, really important because the ability to read quickly and understand the concepts that they're asking, understand what the perspective of the author is. Those things, thank you for helping us hit 100 likes, guys. Let's get that up even higher. Adrian, the cars section is a good correlation for how well people get used to the reading that's on your step 1 and step 2, especially step 2 exams. So if you want to pass boards, holy smokes, cars is a really good practice for this. Now, Adrian, I love the cars section. If you're still there, let me just tell you, the cars section, man, welcome in, Gio. Le Jardin Noir, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Othniel, thank you. Adrian, the cars section is such a massive deal because if you can learn the reading techniques and the logic techniques now, it actually can help you pass boards later. It's one of the few things where doing a good job on it now makes a really big deal later. If you have any more specific questions about cars, please do feel free to ask them. And Adrian, if you need more help than that, this is one of my specialty areas. I scored 100th percentile on the cars section, so do let me know, and I'm happy to help you with more specific questions and answers. 500 likes, thank you guys. Othniel says, so I shouldn't be anxious, just focus on proving medical schools that I can handle the rigorous courses. I really do want to help to answer more specifically, Othniel, what your question is. Are you asking more from the welcome in, guys, on the YouTube side also? If you're talking about overcoming like a lower GPA with a higher GPA later on in your bachelor's, that's always a great option. If you're done with your bachelor's, then the MCAT becomes the only kind of proving ground for you to show, hey, I have the academic abilities to get in and to pass. Armand says, I'm going to be an incoming college freshman. I'm scared about the MCAT. Armand, it's really important for you to kind of calmly get through your coursework in those first 2 years, more than anything else. Don't even think about the MCAT. And then at the end of those 2 years, that's when you essentially hit the reset button and you need to start working through about 3,000 practice MCAT questions. My sort of biggest recommendation is always UWorld. They're really well thought out questions, and they give you the chance to kind of really like give yourself an honest assessment. Like, do I know the content? Do I not? And you don't have to be stressed about it. Gio says, is life over after failing 2 classes? It depends. If there are courses you don't want to retake, like organic chemistry or something like that, and they are prerequisites, then it might feel like things are very bad if you have to retake it. But the good news is there's lots of people out there who may be up to help you. Just make sure you reach out and get help on the courses. Life is not over, okay? Luigi says, 3.8 GPA. What MCAT range do I need to get into a mid-tier school? Okay, Luigi. So I have the actual AAMC stats pulled up right now, and looking at here the 3.8 GPA. So that would put you right at the sort of upper end of the 3.6 to 3.8 range, or the lower end of the 3.8 to 4.0 range. And so you're hitting the 40% mark, which is the national acceptance average, when you get to the 506 to 509 or 502 to 505 bandwidth. So essentially that tells us you would need around a 506 to 508 to hit the sort of national acceptance average. Now, if you want to sort of ensure that you're very highly likely to get an acceptance to the school of your choice, mid-tier, you want to be a little bit above their averages. And so you would be looking ideally at hitting over the 50% acceptance rate, which means getting somewhere in that like 509 to 510, 512 range if you can. That's a good solid place to be. All right. Nora says, what major do you recommend for undergrad that would help give you an edge when applying? You know, my answer there, welcome in Anna, welcome in Ashley. The answer is going to be very different than what most people think. like super different. A lot of people think, welcome Armin. Thank you for liking live. A lot of people have this idea that you should take a major that gives you a lot of exposure to the prerequisite sciences. I have the exact opposite belief. I think you should take oh my goodness, you guys helped us hit 3,000 on the likes. Thank you so much. The answer is, instead of taking courses that will get you more used to the stuff you're going to see on the MCAT, I say take the courses you have to for the MCAT, right? Physics, chemistry, biology, psychology, those that you have to. Spread them out, but do it spread out in a major that is completely different from everybody else. When I was applying, I went in having done a math major and a physics minor, and I had been a photographer and done a bunch of other stuff, and it completely just utterly changed every single thing about the way that I was interviewed, because I went in and I had been a professional mathematician. They were like, oh, well, what is it like to to have been a mathematician, and what did you do, and how is it like being a photographer, and how does this change what you think about, like, interacting with people, and just a whole bunch of really, really different, unique stuff. And one interviewer was super funny, and he told me that it was so much more interesting to chat about this other stuff than to just talk with a bunch of pre-meds who just did the checklist. And he was a funny guy. He ended up like hanging out with me for like an hour or two, and that ended up being the school that ended up sort of earliest acceptance and a scholarship offer. And I realized, man, that it helps to not be the cookie cutter. And then I ended up having a classmate who got accepted because he was a baseball player, and I got another classmate who was accepted who had been an engineer. And I realized, man, this idea that you have to fit this mold is really gone now. Like, you really, it is really gone. Ask your questions about the MCAT and Premed applications here. All right. Leaving instructions for YouTube. All right, guys. Let's see. What? Okay. And then Ollie says, how about for 3.99? Okay. So for GPA for 3.99, you hit that 40%, right? Essentially kind of close to like that 503 mark. So 502 to 505. It really is pretty, if you have a really close 5,000 likes, guys, you're doing, yeah, that's so nice. Thank you guys. And thank you for following. I appreciate it. The insane thing about the GPA is, if you do get close to a perfect GPA, the barrier to getting in with the MCAT is incredibly low, like incredibly low. It's just not that high. Minimum GPA requirements, what do you think it is? Like absolute lowest. Okay, so here's my thing. I tell students, if you have to get like a high GPA, chances are that you deep out Corto, get back in goal. I love it. Yeah, that's great. I say, if you have to get, and let me read the actual stats here. If you have to get essentially nearly a perfect MCAT, or like we'll say above a like 515, 517 to get in, to get to that like 40% acceptance rate, then you've hit a GPA that is actually almost impossible to overcome. And where we start looking at there not being a 40% acceptance rate is once we get into the twos. And this is why I tell students, if you have a GPA in that 3 range, there may still be a spot for you in medical school, because at least in the MD track, even a 3.1 GPA, the average with a 510 to 513, like a good solid MCAT score, is still in the 34% acceptance range. So that's still almost at the national average. And if you can get it up to that 515 mark, you can still have the same 42% acceptance rate that the national average, faces. And so it's not the end of the road. It just isn't the end of the road if you have a 3. Now, once you get into the 2.8 range, right, there is actually no MCAT score that has been documented that can get you to a 40% acceptance rate. And so it is really rough. Now, mind you, there are still people who get in the 2.8 to 2.9 range. There are still about 600 people in the last recorded app cycle who got in. 600. Now, keep in mind, that means that there were about 4,200 people who applied with that GPA who did not get in, but there were still 600. There's still 600 who didn't give up and who tried. And there's about 5,000 who tried, but about 600 got in. All right. Let me see. Lucina, welcome in, says, hi, pharmacy student here. Welcome in. So you guys don't have to take the MCAT, right? Pharmacy students don't have to take the MCAT, right? Tell me they don't. I don't think they do. I've been telling students for years, if you are a pharmacist, you don't have to take the MCAT. I don't think they do. PCAT, there we go. There, the PCAT. All right. Notification says 3.5 to 3.6. There's still a chance. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Whenever I hear people say, I don't know if I can get in, I have a 3.5 GPA. That's so low. That's only the third tier out of 6 tiers there. That's only the third tier. If you can get in that 506 to 509 range, you have about a 1 out of 3 chance of getting in. And keep in mind, the national average for getting in is still less than 1 out of 2. So that's actually not bad. Now, mind you, to get with that 3.5 GPA to get up into the 40s, you still want to score pretty high, 510 to 513. But it's not bad. It's not bad. And then Jimmy says, advice on getting clinical positions without any cert. I'm so sorry, Jimmy, you'd have to probably tell me what more specifically you're looking for. I assume you're asking about some kind of clinical employment to work on for your app, but let me know if that's what you're talking about. Jay says, I'm cooked with a 507, 3.5 for CGPA and 3.34 science GPA. And okay, so 3.3, my recommendation would be that you're going to want, if you can get again into that 506 to 509 range, you're looking at about a 1 out of 3 acceptance. If you can get it above the 510 mark, you are sitting right there with the rest of the country. So it is possible. Keep in mind also that you can apply more broadly. You can apply to subspecialized schools if there are schools that overlap with who you are, the vision of the patient population that you want to serve. Luigi says, what is the best way to get an approximate score before taking the MCAT? Okay, so this is a question everybody wonders. Thank you guys for helping us hit above 7,500 likes. Appreciate it. The question that everybody wants an answer to, right? Luigi says, how do we find out how we're going to take what kind of score range? And this is worth actually hitting my little record button here so I can give a good answer. Luigi asked, how can we tell what score you're going to make on the MCAT? And the answer that people are looking for usually comes from a recent set of full-length practice exams taken under the same timed conditions that you're going to take the real exam, with the same length of breaks or no breaks. And they have to be exams that you have not seen before. There's a really common thing where students will be like, I'm going to score a 520 because I got a 520 on a practice exam that I took 3 times in a row. So it has to be one you have not taken before. That's really important. Do not, however, think that the scores that you've been making on a question bank are going to reflect on your exact score predictions, because question banks are not meant to be predictive in that way. They're meant to teach you, they're meant for you to practice, but they're not meant as score prediction diagnostics. Okay. All right. I hope that is helpful. Sorry, I had to record the occasional rant for the posts, but that's hopefully that kind of gives you an idea. Jay says, thanks, I recently got a JAMA pub and 3,000 EMT hours and busy now one system, hoping those carry. That is great. Make sure you have some kind of regular-ish shadowing a regular family doctor or something. EMT is super, super cool and very, very it's unique and it's awesome. Just also so you can answer some kind of question about regular family practice doctors or something like that. We got a question that says, MCAT, will I fail? I'd be happy to help. Definitely maybe ask something with a little bit more detail so I can address the particular concern that you have. Luigi says, do you know what the average amount of time students spend on the MCAT before taking it? So I have very good information on this. I've been teaching the MCAT for about 13 years. And I would say that a lot of students think the first time that they can study in like 3 to 6 weeks. And of course, as you know, half of the country fails to hit a 500. And that number should never be that should never be the case. But if you want to know sort of what the average is, like, it's not good. Like, a lot of students think they can do it in 3 to 6 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks, and it's just not enough for the majority of people. So here, let's do this. Let me leave something else here on the screen since we are wrapping up in a few minutes. Just so you guys know, and Luigi, I will give you a more detailed answer in 1 second. So I always try to leave this on here kind of at the end in case you guys need to reach out. As you know, I am the founder of MCATboss.com, the new site. It has like one more revision, but the new site is up. The new revisions to MCATboss.com, the new site is up. The new packages and everything are up. And I think I have the installment options and all kinds of stuff there. You can always email me directly at matt@mcatboss.com as well. And okay, Luigi, back to your question. What people should be doing is this. People, and I'm going to give this away for free. This is important information. You should be studying the MCAT question banks like UWorld. You should pick one, do it one question at a time for about 3 months. That is how long it takes for most people to do MCAT content review if they're using a problem-based approach. Okay? This is important. Don't use it as a diagnostic. Don't do them in chunks. Do one problem at a time. Do it for about 3 to 4 months. And then you should be doing practice exams for another 1 to 2 months. And by the end of that, you should have a pretty clear idea of what score range you're going to make on the MCAT. If you need more sort of direct guidelines on how to do it, then I highly recommend this, because this is a brand new thing that is on there. Highly recommend. I have a brand new $600 3-hour self-study saver course. And this is my sort of like, if you want to like completely blitz out on like what I did, I will tell you what I did, how I scored almost 100th percentile without taking an MCAT course. And I will tell you, because this is what most of my students over the past 13 years have done to score crazy high score jumps. But I go into detail about, so like, here's how you do one problem at a time. This is how you evaluate it. This is how you make your content as close to perfect as possible without ever like actually cracking open an MCAT book. It's doable. It's doable. Next question says, what do you think about electrophysiology? I'm so sorry. I don't know what the question, what do I think about electrophysiology means? I think electrophysiology is cool. If you mean as a major or like a practice area, or like people who do electrophysiology as neurologists, you'd have to tell me what you mean. Young says, I have a 3.1 as a sophomore. Do you think I can still get in med school? So the time it takes to get the GPA up if you are a sophomore is not an impossibility, right? People still get into the 3.1. The actual stats over here in our stat chart says that the average acceptance rate for a 3.1 GPA is 16.9%, which is not good. But if you look at it by MCAT score, people who score above a 510 have over a 34% chance of getting in, which is pretty good in terms of the entire ranking, because nationally MCAT turnout isn't great. The MCAT scores on average aren't great, and the average acceptance rate is only 42%. So if you take that into mind, then yeah, if you can score good on the MCAT by the time you're in your 3rd or 4th year, and you can pull that GPA up into preferably, let's say you were able to get it up to 3.45, then pairing that with even a 507 MCAT, you'd still be kind of 1 out of 3 range. And so there are definitely ways to get the numbers up where they need to be, and to apply broadly and with a convincing essay, right? You need to have some kind of a good, meaningful story. It's possible to get your application looked at, and it can be It can be done. I have had students who have done it. So I'll have to make 4.0s throughout undergrad. Ideally, if your GPA in the end comes out below a 3.5, you're still able, if you're still in the threes, to score high enough to get as good or better chances than the average applicant. But once it drops below that, the amount of work you have to do to score a nearly perfect MCAT is kind of the upper cap for most people. That's the most important thing. Guys, I'm going to wrap it up here in about a minute. Drop those questions, and let me know. Orgo is whooping. Yes, Orgo is, I don't miss organic chemistry. I have to say, I've been teaching the MCAT for over a decade. I still love teaching the MCAT. I love almost all the content on the MCAT, but organic chemistry is what it is, right? You get your SN1s, you get your SN2s, you have your structures and your names. It is what it is. And then you try to move on. All right, guys. Do I have tips for Orgo? Now, the cool thing is with organic is you really need to just pull up what's on the MCAT PDF on the AMC website and especially learn those. Really, truly learn those. The things that they mentioned. Everything else, do good enough to do okay in class, but don't sweat it because you're not going to be asked about it again. And you will never, ever, ever be asked about organic chemistry when you're actually in med school. That's the great news about it. All right, guys, I do have to go ahead and wrap it up there. Don't forget to drop a line at mcatboss.com. Check out the help options on mcatboss.com. I have the new $600 3-hour self-study course that I am doing my best. I am doing my best to completely get as many people not to have to use the big courses from the big testing companies. I've worked for a few of them, and I just don't think enough people benefit as much as they do from the sort of problem-based approach that I teach. So I'm trying to teach as many people as I can, and just like, instead of people going out and spending $10K with the courses, like, jump in, learn if you need more help, you can spend more. But yeah, we can get more people onto this problem-based approach, and I think it can benefit everybody. Don't forget to drop a line, and wishing you guys all the best. And can you get in without clinicals? Okay, very last question I'm going to take, and the answer is you need some kind of clinical volunteering, or you could go in with an even perfect score on the MCAT, and they will not let you in. So definitely get your clinical volunteering in, and don't forget to like and follow, and check out the new design. It's a slightly updated design with the new options on mcatboss.com, and we'll see you guys next time. Hope you all have a great one.